congratulations to the United States men's national team for defending their Nations League title and going through Mexico with ease in the semifinal. And then, as we mentioned, just finishing up with our friends to the Great White North, Canada, with also what has to be said, incredible ease. I think the big winners coming out of this game, Mosse, and please disagree if you must, have to be Gio Reyna, although the familiar territory of him being injured again, but his work in the first half, basically put the game away for the most part, and he was wonderful in terms of his service, in terms of his availability, and ultimately in terms of his execution. So him, Balogun getting on the scoreboard, which is why he is there, and had a quiet type of game against Mexico, but sort of improved in this game, and obviously gets his goal, took it well, and that's what you want to see from the attacking perspective. In the back, Chris Richards, who again has had this injury history. Nice to see him get in and dominate against this Canadian team, as I just, was very snarky in my tweet a couple seconds ago. Congratulations to Canada for finishing first in the octagonal. But Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? And it didn't go well at the World Cup, and certainly has not gone well here. And they did not even look close to the U.S. Well, Mosse, thoughts on the game and the result?
Well, I'm going to start with the lineup. I mentioned the other day that the lineup that BJ Callahan put out against Mexico had a 100% approval rating on Twitter. This one, not so. He went with Brenden Aaronson in place of the suspended Weston McKennie, and a lot of people thought that was getting a bit too frisky. A midfield of Yunus Musah, Brenden Aaronson, and Gio Reyna is the sort of midfield you see when somebody's putting together an all-time best 11 and taking liberties with positions, prompting somebody like me to roll their eyes and say, well, that's not a lineup that would ever actually play in a game. Well, in this case, it did play for the first 45 minutes. Then Gio got hurt. He brought on De La Torre for Gio at halftime. And then later on brought on your boy Johnny Cardoso for Aaronson. And I actually don't think the U.S. ever found quite the right midfield combination to exert the same level of control in this game that they had against Mexico. This game was more stretched end to end. Canada had some dangerous moments throughout, but in the end, the U.S. still won 2-0 because the moral of the story here is the U.S. was so much more talented than the two teams they faced in this Final Four that they could just out-talent them. BJ could take some liberties tactically, and they could get away with it. So.
And look, if you shut down Alphonso Davies, that's a big part of what Canada does. They switched him to different sides. I thought that Joe Scally did as good a job as one can do against a world-class type of player with incredible speed and ability. You saw Alphonso get frustrated at different times, but for the most part, I think they did a good job. Anthony Robinson did a really good job of reading when there were problems on that side and shifting over, almost being that last man at different times. I do agree with you. I didn't think that Brenden Aaronson staked his claim as a potential starting midfielder when it comes to taking potentially, in this case, Weston McKennie's spot by any stretch of the imagination. We know that Tyler Adams is still down there. I think the big question is where does Gio Reyna show up if and when everybody is there and everybody is healthy? These are good problems to have for whether it's BJ or Greg Berhalter going forward, and I know we'll talk about that going forward. But this is a wealth of talent, and again, I think even in a half, Gio Reyna showed what he is capable of doing. And yes, you have to have some perspective and recognize that it was against, like we said, a Canadian team that was certainly not very good on the night, but you only play what's in front of you. I said the same thing against Mexico the other day. It's not any of these players' fault that they were playing against a team like that. And what happens to Gio Reyna if and when the U.S. doesn't have this type of ball possession, if it doesn't have this type of confidence and comes up against an elite team and a team that is going to dictate what happens as opposed to the U.S. being able to dictate? That will be really interesting.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.